The RACI chart is one of the most important project tools. You'll sometimes hear it referred to as the RACI Matrix, or a responsibility chart, or a linear responsibility chart, or a responsibility matrix. So, let's find out how to build one. First, let's clear up a simple confusion. Around 20 years ago, if you'd asked what a RACI chart was, people who knew would tell you it's a matrix which has tasks on one axis and the roles on the other. The responsibility, accountability, the need to be consulted, and the need to be informed. A linear responsibility chart, on the other hand, reflects this in a slightly different way, putting the individuals along the axis instead of the roles and marking the roles in the intersections rather than the individuals. Today, however, almost everyone who refers to a RACI chart is actually describing what used to be a linear responsibility chart. The terminology has changed. To all intents and purposes, they are the same thing. So, the format with names across one axis and tasks along the other is the format we're going to use. I'm not going to worry about terminology. It's the better format, and it is the one that most people know today. The RACI chart takes its name from 4 roles that an individual may take towards a task or activity on a project. The first role is to be responsible for executing that task, for doing the work. The second is the role of accountability, to be accountable for how the work is done. Now, I prefer the word authority to the A in RACI, but it's probably the less common of the two. But it does, to me, seem to carry more strongly the idea that this is the person who has the authority to sign off completion. Use accountability, authority according to your preference, and make sure the people around you understand what you're doing, and all will be well. The C stands for consult. These are the people whose opinions about the task or activity matter. So we ask them their opinions, we listen to their responses, and we take them into account in making our choices. And finally, I stands for inform. These are the people who need to know what's going on, so we need to inform them. However, we don't need to take account of their opinions. They may not have the expertise that they need. They may not be important enough to us in executing the task or activity. So, to create a RACI chart, I'm going to suggest a simple 7-step process. Step 1 is to list all the tasks or activities that need to get done. And you'll list them at the level of detail or granularity that is appropriate to the work you're doing. You might have high-level summary tasks, or you might choose to go to a greater level of detail. Once you've listed them, put them onto a matrix or a chart or a grid, usually down the vertical column. Second, identify all of your stakeholders, or if you're just concerned with the work itself, possibly just your team members, but identify them and put them along the horizontal axis of your grid or chart. Next, fill in the roles for each stakeholder at each intersection. There are no rules here. The typical roles are the 4 RACI roles, but if there are other roles that are important to you, then go at it. And also, don't let anybody tell you that every cell has to be filled in, nor that an individual can only hold one role. If on your project it is right for a certain individual to have more than one role, and if on your project there is no role for a certain individual on a specific task, that is fine. Fourth, you next need to carry out a sense check to make sure your allocations make sense. And when I finish the 7-step process, I'll give you the 7 checks I always apply. Fifth, consult your stakeholders. Are they happy with the allocations? Can they spot any problems? Make note of their feedback and take action on it. As a result, step 6 is to finalize your RACI chart, and step 7 is to publish it. Because as well as a planning tool, a RACI chart is a magnificent form of communication tool, letting everybody know what their responsibilities are and what their colleagues' responsibilities are, and who they're going to be working with on each task or activity. By the way, if you need to delegate tasks as a result of your RACI allocations and you want to know more about delegation, then please do take a look at our videos answering the question, what is delegation and how to delegate? And if you want to go into it in more details, then we have a course on delegation. And if you're interested in that course, look in the description below for a discount to access that course. So at step 4, I told you need to make a sense check of your RACI chart. And I suggested that there are 7 checks I would typically do. Let's take a look at them. Check 1, the obvious one. Have you missed any tasks? Or have you missed any stakeholders? Check 2, is there someone accountable for every task? Because if there isn't, then subsequent tasks may not get started on time because no one's taking responsibility for the task that's finished. And if there are problems, who's going to take accountability for them? Next, do you have any tasks with more than one accountable person? Because if you do, there's the possibility of ambiguity and dispute. Now, it is possible that 2 people can be accountable for a task, but you should always question whether it is wise. Fourth, has anybody been allocated too much responsibility? Look at the workload for each stakeholder. Is that consistent with the time they've got available and the needs of the tasks at hand? Because each task has to be finished to the correct quality. And if one person has too much responsibility, then they won't have time to do that. They will become stressed, overworked, and let's not forget, they will become a single point of failure on your project, what is sometimes known as a key person risk. And of course, check number 5. Does every task have at least one person who is responsible for doing it? And when you check that, also check that there are enough responsible people to get the task done to the right standard in the time available. But check 6 is, are there any tasks with too many people responsible? Again, this can cause ambiguity, confusion, and possibly people opting out of their responsibility. If you find this, then you may be able to move some people from the responsible role to the consult role and end up with a more efficient allocation. And likewise, number 7, are there any tasks or activities where too many people are being consulted to the extent that it is going to cause delays, confusion, or even unnecessary conflict? Once again, the solution, if you find too many people are being consulted, is to look for some people who you can get away with simply informing them. Quite rightly, in my view, the RACI chart has become hugely popular and very widely used. In the form that I've described it, it is my favourite project management tool, although I grew up calling it a linear responsibility chart. It's a tool you need to know, to understand, and it will repay you using it on many projects. Please do give a like if you've enjoyed this video. I'll be making loads more great project management content, so of course do subscribe to the channel, and if you don't want to miss anything, then hit the bell icon to be reminded of every new video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.